Dvorak. She's the award-winning national security border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and print media. Senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. He's also TV correspondent at CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. And right now, she should be streaming live at Periscope.com, Facebook, and later on you can catch her at YouTube. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good. Seems like I have one of these, you want to call it a summer cold because of the way the weather is, but it's not a summer cold. So I don't,
you can't wait for impeachment to get over cold? Is that what it is?
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Hey, I was looking at an interesting thing here where all of a sudden there's somebody running for president on the Democratic side that says maybe we should send troops to Mexico.
Yeah.
Didn't some guy that's already president mention that not too long ago?
He did, and he basically got crucified for even thinking that. And it didn't take long for Mayor Pete, who spilled the beans on this one and said that he favored this. He's a former military veteran. He basically said that, yeah, the violence is out of control. We know from statistics that the violence is extremely out of hand. They have no idea how to stop all of the murders. It's gotten to a point where now Mexico, and this is our neighbor to the south again, Mexico owns 5 of the 6 most violent cities in the world. 5. Unbelievable when we have Syria and Libya and those kind of places. 5 are in Mexico. And guess which one's number 1 now? This is new. Tijuana. So just south of San Diego is the world's most murder per capita in the entire world, is sitting less than 50 feet from San Diego. So you look at this.
Looking at your statistics on Tijuana.
Yeah.
Accounts for approximately 1.5% of the nation's population.
Yep.
But has far contributed to around 7.5% of Mexico's murders in the year 2019.
Yeah, that's so far. As you know, this year's not over yet. We've got another 6 weeks to go or so. But yeah, that's true, and that's astonishing to see that the beautiful city by the sea there in San Diego, to which I call home, is sitting right next door to a very lethal cartel syndicate that continues to wreak havoc across not only Mexico along our southern border, but also in the United States. We know these violent criminals come here and they commit more crime. So it's just, when is enough enough? Of course, Mayor Pete got chastised for that statement about sending troops into there. And after we lost 8 Americans a few weeks back, the president mentioned that, look, I'm a phone call away. Let's do something about this. So, we sit and wait to see how many more people die, I suppose, while Mexico continues to not be able to grasp, I guess, the seriousness of this. And it looks more and more like the country is a narco state, which we actually have called on this network and on your show a number of times.
Kimberly, the thing that's pretty obvious, and, you go back, I'll say 3 years ago, and I may be shortening it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned those, those cities in Mexico and how, 5 of the 6, the most murder-racked cities in the world.
Yeah.
One of those cities is Acapulco.
Yeah.
See, that used to kind of be protected because that's where the rich and a lot of white people went to vacation.
Yeah.
So now here you are killing Americans in Acapulco and also, living there as dual citizens.
Yeah.
Seems like there's no holds barred anymore.
There isn't, and this is kind of fair game, I guess, because the police, the FBI in this country continue to nab the top people within their top lieutenants within these drug cartels. They used to have a sort of gentleman agreement between the government and the cartels. That being that we're not going to be active in any of these major tourist locations because that's going to hurt the country's bottom line. So we'll stay away from Acapulco. We'll stay away from Cancun. We'll stay away from Tijuana, and all will be fine. They continue to operate their business, but everything has started to unravel, starting, I believe, with the capture and extradition of El Chapo to the U.S., where he's sitting in, federal security prison, which he'll never see the light of day again, in essence. So this kind of probably started it. Then they elect a very liberal, love, not bullets types of a president. And now the cartels see an inroad here to kind of take over the government, because they realize that the government is very weak-kneed and they're not going to do anything about it. So now you've got warring cartels everywhere trying to fight for this territory to bring their illegal drugs and illegal humans across the border, and so they can be dispersed throughout this country, and we've even caught terrorists that actually have gone that route in this country. So when you look at the bigger picture, the cartels really do seem to be running most of the show there.
Well, and then in the public sector, you mentioned in your latest report about how 2/3 of the people in Mexico, I guess, don't trust the local police, and violence against women. Wow.
Yeah.
Is it femicide they call it?
Yeah, they call it femicide. They're saying the mayor of Mexico, who's the very first female to be elected mayor of Mexico City, commissioned a study and wanted to find out, what's going on with the cartels, the women, and why women are suffering higher murder rates, despite, other countries having obviously not as many women being attacked. Now stunningly, 45% of women in the country of Mexico have claimed, I guess we could say, that they've been abused by, raped by cartel people, raped by passerby, their spouses, their boyfriends, their family members, whatever. That's almost 50%. And when you see that large of a number, that means how many males are actually perpetrating these types of crimes. And we see a lot of them coming across the border. So at the behest of President Trump here, he took a real beating by saying that they're not sending their best and their brightest to this country. And when you see what's going on to women, if it's okay to do that at women and these people are not convicted and thrown in jail, they're allowing women to be abused at some of the highest rates in the world. So if they're coming to this country from there, I always do like a little LOL type thing on this, but they definitely are not sending their best and brightest when you see these kind of numbers. And these numbers were actually, commissioned from a well-respected academic outfit. So this isn't just like me or you saying these women are being raped. This comes from, numbers and academics parsing these numbers out.
Well, and speaking of rape, there's a higher crime. It's called murder.
Mm-hmm.
And this is shocking, okay? You say it's also worth noting that in just the first 5 months of 2019, more than 80 women were murdered. Oh, and by the way, we're not talking about Mexico. We're talking about Mexico City.
Yes, Mexico City.
80 women so far murdered.
That's astonishing. And then just look at this. Mexico City traditionally has enjoyed a very low murder rate, has a very low crime, because this came at this was one of the big things that the cartels, worked with former presidents, that look, we're going to leave Mexico City out of this. It's our capital. We've got foreign people from all over the world coming in to meet with our government. You're going to be relatively safe if you wander around the streets of Mexico City. That's completely changed. And I think that's what you're seeing now with a lot of people coming forward, and why you see the president making changes within law enforcement, because he's seeing, oh my gosh, I live here. I'm getting complaints from my constituents that women are being raped, there are kidnappings, there are muggings that are at record levels. And so no longer is Mexico City that safe city to where people feel that they can go to, let alone diplomats come to Mexico City to actually, do business with the country of Mexico. In fact, things got so dire last week that the federal police blocked the road from the airport, so they effectively shut down the airport. And we're talking about the Mexican National Guard against the Mexican Federal Police, at odds with one another, claiming and saying they are not going to give in here because a lot of the federal police were paid more to work for the federal police. Now they're forced over to the National Guard, and they are not making as much money as they were over there. And they made their stand at the airport in Mexico City. So I don't know where this coverage was on mainstream media, but that's pretty brazen. It's like the FBI going, hey, you know what, National Guard, we're not going to deal with you anymore, and we want more money. You're not going to get it. And going over to LAX or JFK and standing in the middle of all the roads that get in there and say, yeah, we're going to shut down the airport. Nobody's getting in and out. Can you imagine something like that happening here? Stunning.
Let me tell you, the ironic thing is, and like we say, that this report, comes out later on YouTube and things like that, but here it is as we're doing this, Kimberly and I, it's Monday, right? I was looking over this report a little bit last night, and at the same time, I'm hearing in the background, or I guess I read in the paper, well, the Los Angeles Chargers, they arrived in Mexico City Sunday, for the big Monday night football game.
Good luck.
Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and all of these riots and protests going on at the airport, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, It's like a little battle itself. And I guess, hey, don't leave the football field, guys. Just stay there, get back on your plane if you can get out, if they're not rioting and closing down the airport. But yet, you don't, here it is. It's a big push, like you say, the mainstream media, they kind of want to ignore this stuff, and well, just like with Kaepernick.
With everything.
Making a big deal about his whole still.
Well, I mean, and this is kind of, for me, I obviously did research on this, and the New York Times came out with a story a few days back. And they actually, at the end, it was talking about Mexico, and they were answering questions from readers. Is it okay to go to Mexico? Is it violent? Yes, it's violent. Is it safe to go to Mexico? And at the very end, the editors concluded that no, tourists should not be wary whatsoever. They should head on down to Mexico because it's perfectly safe. When you stay in your little, hotel in your little zone, you're fine. So don't boycott Mexico. Head on down there and spend your tourist dollars. I mean, how can a newspaper tell people with all of this, and now we know 5 of the top 6 murder rate cities are in Mexico. How can you say with a straight face, go on down to Mexico. It's a great place to travel and you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. We're here to tell you that we've talked to people and everything is good as gold down there. And to me, as a tourist, if you're looking at the New York Times, you may want to take a second shot or a second look at the LA Times or the New York Times, because who knows what they're recommending that you do in other portions of the newspaper. So it's hard to combat all of these issues. It's hard to combat the statistics that are boring out that this is going to be the highest violent rate that Mexico's seen in recorded history. And it's hard to see that the United States, our diplomatic corps, our journalists, our people that are supposed to be looking out for us, are saying, look, we see what's going on in the Middle East, but if we look at the numbers here, let's look what's going on in Mexico. This is our neighbor. So how many of those people are making it across the border? And whether we should or shouldn't send troops down there, we should not be sending troops without a thoughtful plan, first of all, with an end game in mind. But we have to do it at the behest of the Mexican government reaching out to the United States. I mean, if Mexico is out there and violent and they feel that they can continue to do this, they're going to continue to probe on how they can get across the border and how they can eat away at our border security folks and get into this country. And again, I say they are not sending the best and brightest. They're sending the most violent people who would love to see the same violence take place here so they can make more money on drugs down there.
Well, and I kind of wonder, how squeaky clean Obrador is, the new Mexican president, because he definitely turned down Trump.
Yeah.
Like, no, we don't want to go there yet.
Yeah.
And does that mean, maybe he's getting a kickback, or maybe he thinks it's going to stir people up more? And what makes Mayor Pete, think that all of a sudden, the guy's going to change his mind because, hey, guess what? There's a Democrat running for president. I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I don't. I mean, his staff pretty quickly said that they were walking that statement. But you have to question. The United States has been dropping bombs, giving aid and support to many of these countries in the Middle East, and these other countries are killing other people. And one has to ask the question here: why isn't Mexico, and why aren't their citizens? Why aren't their lives worth anything? When you look at this, why aren't their lives worth anything here? And it would be much more favorable for the United States to have a friendly, prosperous southern neighbor like our northern neighbor. So the billions and trillions that we're spending over there, we could be spending back in this country, and working on some sort of public-private partnership with Mexico, so they can kind of shore things up.
The one thing I am not really clear on is why in the world is the federal police officers going out of business and they want everybody to get into the new National Guard? The federal police officers, is that like state police, but it's all over?
Well, the National Guard was a unit that the new president kind of put together to take care of violence, and they actually reach out into like the rural areas. So I think you kind of look at it more like the police, or at least in San Diego and California, you look at it as police kind of get the metro area and all of that, and then it's the sheriff's department that reaches out to the others. I think that may be a better comparison for that, but again, you've got warring agencies in essence then, and most of them have taken a pay cut to go over to the National Guard. Now, after this huge clash, the president did come out and say that, okay, we understand you have your grievances, time to get back to work. We're not firing anybody over this, but you be warned, just get back to work. So not only now is the president kind of belittled himself again, now cartels know, okay, great. He's not even going to fire anybody for doing this stuff. It's going to be a heyday. And it's kind of like what Gavin Newsom did last week, the great governor from California, who pardoned 3 illegal aliens in California. All 3 were convicted and doing time for federal offenses like robbery, mugging, breaking and entering, those just minor crimes, I guess. And he pardoned them so they wouldn't be deported. So the best and the brightest now can go to California, check the box, and the governor will give you a free pass, free insurance, free, the whole 9 yards. And then also just, a couple weeks ago, we saw the FBI arrest in Tucson, Arizona, a couple of Somalis who crossed along the southern border to come in on charges of terrorism, supporting material charges on terrorism. They were supporting ISIS and other Al-Qaeda affiliates, and were hoping to commit their own violence against Americans in this country, also crossing that southern border. So if Americans don't realize what's really coming across that southern border, and they don't realize what's going on in California, how they're going to keep them there, ask Sweden to see how it's working out for them. They've had issue after issue, and now they're regretting allowing all these migrants to integrate into their society because they don't integrate.
I'll tell you, I guess the word I'll use is propaganda.
Yeah.
The propaganda that's been spread around America today, and especially in the large cities, and especially in the state of California.
Yeah.
When I heard that Newsom, they said, "Oh, he's further left than Jerry Brown." I said, "No way, he couldn't be." Yeah. Surprise.
He is. Yeah, he is. I think that'll be the last governor that we can say, was the least left that the state will hire. But you know what, Chuck? You and I, as California, born and raised, it's very sad to see what's going on in the state. And sadly, it's going to take a lot more to get Californians to wake up and stop voting the same people back into office up there in Sacramento, because what they're making illegal in January, if you rob the 7-Eleven of less than $100. It's not a crime. I mean, how long is that going to take for everybody in the neighborhood to clean out 7-Eleven?
I think it's Prop 47. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
$690 worth of shoplifting out of major stores. Don't call us unless it's more than that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Hey, Kimberly, all out of time. Certainly appreciate today's report and each and every report. Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K, thekdreport.com. Looking great as usual there. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All righty. Frosty Wodry.